what she's coming to realize is that Olympic lifting is the vehicle by which she's coming to understand herself. So I think that's what we could begin to view strength conditioning or training, physical training as a vehicle to understand ourselves and a context by which we can then say, hey, let's talk about nutrition. Let's talk about sleep. Why? Because those things impact our performance and our body composition and our power and all those things.
So do you think this is sort of down then to a problem with sort of poor understanding of why we're doing certain movement patterns? So people think I'm squatting for power, where they're squatting more for their hip hinge ability, or they're not understanding why they're doing certain mechanics. So they then load up the bar with far too much weight, and then they don't know when their own mechanics breaks down, or their hip hinging it becomes a bat wink in the squat, or those sorts of things. Is it, do we not understand just basically the movement patterns we should be using, and just how we should be able to move up and down in 3D, etc., before we start adding weight to the bar? Do we need a beginner's course again?
I think we can always beginner's course. I have some of the strongest friends in the world, and they say things like, oh, I just started deadlifting for the first time like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, you pull 800, but you just started to understand deadlifting? Like, okay, that's unusual. The idea here is, ultimately we have done a poor job in society of creating, let's call them movement vital signs or physical vital signs. Our model has been pain, no pain, look good naked or not, high level performance, right? That's it. And I think it's confusing. The internet is very confusing because if, we're seeing a whole bunch of exercises just vomited out about pain, and people are limping around, with got back pain, like try these 3 things, pew, pew, pew. What the problem is, we're now in an attention economy. We don't understand what's essential. So there's no good exercise or bad exercise, but there are certain positions and shapes that lend themselves to a lot more transferability. Mm-hmm. And that really means that I can begin to have a little bit more nuanced conversation about the choices that I'm making as a coach or an instructor. I'm looking for transfer. Does this transfer to a specific thing? And again, as long as it's about pain or no pain, that's very confusing. The physical therapists have muddied the water even more. There's a whole bunch of physios who just said things like, it doesn't matter how you move because it doesn't cause pain or injury. And I'm like, well, we all know that, but that doesn't say why we use these techniques. These techniques transfer more effectively. They maintain physiologic capacity. That's why we choose these things. And I think as long as we aren't always looking at that spectrum of, does this get me to the Olympics? Can I continue to build on these skills? Then what we see is these really weird artifacts of coaching, artifacts of intellectualism, where we end up having swinging a rope for like rope flow, like David Weck. I love that. I use it every day. I swing a heavy rope and it recaptures all the rotation in my wrists and elbows. I'm a paddler. I love to mountain bike. It makes me feel connected really well in a freaky way before I go paddle. So I can do all this elaborate movement stuff, or wait for it, I can just spin this rope around for 5 minutes, play, and touch all of these shapes, do all the PNF patterns, get all my rotation, side bending, priming in. I don't think I need to turn the rope flow into an exercise or an ethos or an identity for me personally. But what we see is that people take these tools and then make them about a specific thing. And if you happen to be genetically born with abs, you're like, the ab, comes from the rope flow. We end up confusing the basics with what's going on. So to your point, we've lost why we're training. And sometimes one of the things we try to do is help people, over and over again, understand what is essentialism for the movement.